You, wow.
For the listener who will have just tuned in, what is it that Skip Bayless said that about Bronny James that's made Kieran laugh this much?
All right, are you ready? This is the tweet.
Yeah.
Bronny James is now even more popular than his father.
Yeah, okay. I'd laugh.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time. But I ain't spending any time. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time.
Hi, Kieran.
Hi, Yanni.
And hello, everyone else. Welcome to Shouldn'ta Come. Welcome back. We were just laughing. We're just having a little laugh.
I just can't believe that shit.
It's just, you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh when an American sports pundit says something of gravitas. Because it's always something very silly if you know about the sport. But you've also gotta laugh. Because if I stop laughing, I realize I live in a country that's preparing the long-term scaffolding for child labor coal mining camps.
Oh.
That's nice, dear.
And that's what we're going to talk about today on Shouldn't It Come, Australia's most trans political podcast. We're trans political.
Damn it. But are we also trans and political?
I am all of them. I'm every political stance.
I knew it.
I'm a single issue voter on every issue.
I'm actually pan-political.
I'm pan-political.
I'm demi-political.
And yeah, we're talking about youth crime. We're talking about youth crime in Queensland and the David Crisafulli government. And this is kind of the second part of our series on anti-Semitism, because we're also talking about crime and how crime is reported in Australia and the lies that are kind of hidden, obscured by the way it's reported, both in a statistical sense and in a media sense. But yeah, youth labor coal camps. You excited?
I mean, yeah, I won't be working in them.
Yeah, no, neither.
I'm in my 30s.
It's all downhill from here.
Thank God. I'm really glad I read a pulp fantasy book with this plot recently, because it's really scary to think about if you're not like, if you actually think about what that would be, it's terrifying. So you have to keep laughing, because if not, you'll lose your fucking mind.
Fair enough.
I'm not crazy. I swear. Like, I sound very paranoid. I understand. Like, oh, they're going to ship the kids off to the desert and make them mine the coal. They're going to make them rare earth mining and they're going to ship them to China. But I'm just paranoid about how much Australians hate kids.
Yeah, I mean, like, a reasonable amount, actually.
Given how much they talk about it as well, like, they really, like, hate kids.
Yeah, little fuckers.
I don't want toys. I want revenge!
Australia's mining industry did say they had a shortage of 24,000 workers last year. Whatever that means. And that's a rapidly expanding industry. Mining is 13% of our GDP and growing.
Jesus.
13.
That's not good.
13 is a big number.
But people don't want to work in the mines. When people moved away from the mines during the early COVID days, a lot of them didn't really come back. They stayed in Sydney or Melbourne, and they got weird work-from-home mining jobs sometimes. Or they just started driving for Uber, or they got an office job, or they started fighting in the streets, or they... whatever.
You know, everybody's got to find something new.
Exactly, and people were like, I don't want to go back to the mines. Like, that's despite... a lot of PR for these mining jobs. Like, I found this piece about French accountant Gregory Brungard, who gave up a classy life in the south of France for a FIFO truck driving job in WA. Because for those workers who do show up, they're showing up on a platform on incredibly low unemployment. Western Australia has the highest employment rate in Australia, which means the people who are employed get a lot of bargaining power. It's kind of like this. You can't find someone to replace me. No one wants to do this, so you better pay me more.
Yeah,
If there's high unemployment, which is something that, whenever you think about an economist, remember that all economists will tell you it's good for the economy for there to be some unemployment. So they don't want you to have a job.
Which is crazy.
But when there's high unemployment, it's very easy for people to be like, oh, we'll just get that person who works cheaper. You hear Gina kind of arguing about this, where she's like, we should just import people from Africa and pay them $2 a day because they'll work for that. That'll be enough to feed their families.
Gina, you fucking scumbag.
So, fucking good for those miners, I guess, from a labor perspective. I'm glad they get more money.
Yeah. And like it's quite a lucrative career, I think, in certain
Someone forgot to put their phone on silent.
Yeah, I wonder who did that.
It's me. But yeah, quite a lucrative career. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I think it's quite a lucrative career, particularly, I guess, when you're in those kind of FIFO roles, especially.
Yeah,
because it's like, hey, you'll earn good money doing this because it's kind of like a fucking bizarre way to live.
It's a bizarre way to live. It's really tough on your body and back and stuff.
Yeah, and also like relationships and like just your life in general. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy.
I meet a lot of people at work who, selling luxury goods at a retail setting, who are FIFO workers. Like, our clientele is mostly women, and it's women who buy luxury cosmetics, and a lot of them are like, yeah, I work in a mine. It's a lot of people are being flown out. Like, there's, like, ABC did a little girl power kind of article about it, which, like, I don't know. The cost of living crisis unearthing more women who want to work in the mining industry. Like, I don't feel the girl power. It's like, yeah.
Yes, ladies.
Yes, ladies.
Oh my God, if you're not working in mining, you are bloody missing out, eh?
It's so hard to live in a city now that ladies are going to work in the mines. Yeah.
Yes,
like
empowerment.
It didn't feel good, but the mines want to get bigger, and the mine owners need to figure out what to do about all these, like, empowered laborers.
Yeah.
They're, the classic solution, brown slaves, is kind of hard to do directly in 2025.
True.
For mining. The days of imported brown folk from India or the islands are over in mining. That exploitation is in fruit and vegetables and meat packing and things like that.
They're basically treated as if they are slaves in our land.
Yeah.
The mining industry is trying to pump immigration numbers up, but it's more of the goal of, and this is what people who analyze this say, saturating cities with overqualified immigrants to tempt white Australians back into the outback. So, like, I don't know if that's a strategy that will work, but that's the stated idea.
Bizarre.
Behind, we want more immigrants so that all the doctors will move in. White people won't be able to be like doctors and engineers.
Won't be able to get jobs, and so they'll come back to the mines where they belong.
Because to be fair, white Australians can't fucking read.
Fair.
We have some of the worst, like, education standards in the world. All these women and random people from France are not going to be enough people to drive wages down low enough to keep the owners happy. They want to have as cheap a labor force as possible. And thankfully, in this country, we still have access to more traditional common sense labor shortage solutions. Karen, what's the common sense labor shortage solution?
Oh, God. Is it kids?
Not yet.
Or is it prisoners?
It is prisoners. So ABC says that prisoners could provide a potential answer to agriculture's labor shortage.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is basically what the US does, right? Is that they have factories and fucking, like, like ground crews or whatever that are just like prison construction crews, where it's like, yeah, we'll just take you out and you'll fucking retar a road or some shit.
Yeah, this is what the US does.
Oh, no.
So the United States famously has, when slavery was abolished, there's also an amendment where it's like, except for prisoners.
Except you can still be a slave if you're in prison.
If we've decided you're a prisoner.
Let's say slavery, you took away the whips, but you put the paperwork. Took away the masters and you put them in uniform. Same difference.
Yeah, no, the ABC in this kind of prison labor PR movement they're doing, they ran a story about Peter McDonald, who turned his life around.
Excuse me, everybody.
So they ran a story about Peter McDonald, who says he turned his life around thanks to a prisoner work camp.
Right.
He's like, it saved me from the streets and stuff. And I'm not, like, really coming out against the idea that can be beneficial for somebody's individual life.
Yeah.
Like, people should be afforded, like, opportunities to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, prison work camps filled sandbags for Cyclone Alfred, and they trimmed trees for Cyclone Jasper. They've actually been a pivotal part of cyclone cleanup in Queensland since 2006.
Seriously?
Since Cyclone Larry.
Holy shit.
Yes, but, like, that's all work in the community, so it's only low-risk stuff.
Yeah.
You can only send, like, low-risk criminals. You're only getting about $4.25 million of slave labor into the economy.
Okay.
Via these programs, which is the stuff that we can see. A Victorian state MP called the process completely unethical, but it's good enough for Qantas, Bunnings, Fantastic Furniture, Oriton, and the boutique tea towel company, Mount Vic and Me.
Damn, what the fuck?
They all use slavery labor. No, prison labor.
Sorry, oopsies. Oopsies, wrong word.
Legally distinct prison labor. But these are agreements like that the government makes with the company because the government's kind of responsible for the prisoners, and so they're commercial.
Well, because they're the slave owners. You
exactly, and and it's commercial in confidence because the transaction of these slaves. Keep in mind that about a third of our prisoners are First Nations, who
Of course they are.
They are the most incarcerated population group in the world.
Yeah, that completely tracks for me. Like the way that we treat Indigenous Australians is just fucking insane.
It is. And like when I heard that stat, right, the most incarcerated group in the world, I was like that, like there can't be any way to measure that. And obviously once you get down to like subpopulations, like there's entire fucking villages who are essentially blah, blah, blah. Palestinians are essentially all. But
yeah,
when we're talking about like the actual amount of people that we know that are incarcerated on a lot of different ways that you measure it, Indigenous Australians are the most or some of the very most incarcerated people in the world.
Yeah.
And that is, something that the state does on purpose. But the numbers still aren't adding up to enough hands on deck. So in late 2023, we started hearing the obvious next step. Use the little hands of children. I mean, I don't know. It certainly started out in the fringes. It was Robbie Katter who first suggested relocation sentencing, saying that it was based on bujeka, which is, as per what they say, an indigenous term for banishment.
Right.
For, certain Indigenous groups in his electorate. One of his main party members spooked how it would be cheaper than keeping the kids in the city because you don't need to really worry about where they're going if you're 400 kilometers from the next town.
Jesus Christ. This is just all of those fucking camps. Those, like, camps for troubled teens, except instead of making them hike aimlessly, we're going to put them to work.
Yeah.
And they still can't run away because they'll probably just die.
Yeah, you'll just die of exposures. Like, you're going to run 400 kilometers through the desert.
Go on, then.
Fucking have fun.
Yeah, no fences here. We don't need them.
Also, we just have, like, one dude with a tower who just picks you off from a distance. Like, it's fine. But that's just the Catters. They don't have power, like, across the state in the kind of infrastructural way you need to be able to do this.
True.
But then independent MP Sandy Bolton got to head a youth crime committee and said youth boot camps could be back. When I say back, when do you think Queensland last had boot camps for troubled youth?
I want to say the 2000s because that sounds like a reasonable time frame, but I feel like it's probably much more recent than that.
2013.
Fuck's sake. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, 2013. It's kind of bipartisan. Like, Labour governments have been behind youth boot camp style things as well.
It's just insane how much, like, adults want to punish children.
Exactly.
Like, just punish them for what? Being young? I don't know.
For being young and having no future.
Fuck.
So that committee that I'm talking about didn't actually last long, and it disbanded within a year in a spate of arguments around. When I was reading the arguments, it was kind of like, do we actually hate these kids or do we want to help these kids?
Is this punishment or rehabilitation?
Exactly. And that's like, they weren't reaching each other because one side's like, you're not punishing them enough. And the other side's like, you're not rehabilitating them enough. And they're not having the same argument. But then on October 8th, 2024, David Crisafulli announced his reset camps, which aren't boot camps yet, but what we have here are ingredients.
What the heck is a reset camp?
You go away for a few weeks. It's kind of out in the bush. It's much more, I think, a troubled teen style camp than like a work camp.
Yeah.
Or boot camp, really. Like, it's a bit more. Some of the descriptions I heard from them sound quite harrowing. Some of the descriptions sound okay. I think it really depends on where it is and who's running it. But it's just the idea of, like, you're going to go out somewhere for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. That just sounds horrifying to me on a personal level.
Yeah, especially we're talking about a 14, 15-year-old.
That's fucked.
But it's
you don't come back from that the same. And I guess it's either you improve in society's eyes or you get substantially worse.
Yeah.
You know, either this is a shock to the system, a scare them straight.
Yeah.
Or this is a
scare
the world
schizophrenic.
Is out to get me and nobody cares about me and they will just throw me in the wilderness because I don't matter and so I can do what I want.
They'll jump out of a black van.
Yeah, like literally kidnapped in the middle of the night shit. Like that fucking hell.
Yeah. So, youth crime. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's.
If you'd like a bit of a primer on our fearless premier, David Crisafulli, please refer to our episode on him and the one before that on these fucking Italians.
Yes, we got to know about them.
These bloody Italians. So David Crisafulli announced his reset camp plan before he won the election. So it's clearly a pretty popular idea. Like
Yeah.
people heard that and they were still like, yes, I'll vote for this man.
Perfect.
But to summarize, the highest profile policy that David hit at length during his successful run to the Queensland Premiership was adult crime, adult time. That was just a slogan during the campaign itself. I hear some youth crime.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's the neighbors. He's gonna bark for a minute.
Shall we take a quick pause or shall we?
Yeah, let's take a quick pause.
Youth crime.
But to summarize about David Crisafulli, the highest profile policy that he hit at length during his successful run to the Queensland Premiership was adult crime, adult time. That was just a slogan during the campaign itself. But now we have laws based on this juvenile callow catchphrase, and I'm still angry about that. But David Crisafulli is angrier at these juvenile callow criminals.
Yeah, like the David Crisafulli like research I did for his episode. The man like just I don't know what happened, but he really fucking hates like kids that I guess do crimes, or kids who might do crimes, or kids who look like they might do crimes.
Yeah, I don't think he can, like, he doesn't seem like someone who can really understand how. I think he seems like a manichaeistic person. I think he has a fundamental belief that there are good people and there are bad people.
Yeah.
And that informs a lot of his policies. That informs a lot of the way he works. That there are good things and bad things, and good people and bad people.
And
or he plays into that belief in people.
Yeah, and I think like also like, you know, small town country boy goes to like the big city being Townsville.
Yeah.
Probably sees like youths with nothing to do getting a bit like crazy and goes like, oh my god, they'd never do this in I've forgotten where he's from.
Where's he from?
He's from like
the Hunter Valley, end of the. Is he from Ayr? No, he's not from Ayr. Fuck. Where's David Crisafulli from? Kieran, you did the episode.
I did. I know. I feel fucking terrible. Welcome to.
Let me look it up. David Crisafulli was born in Ingham.
Ingham, like the chicken. God damn it.
Like the fucking chicken. God damn it. All right. So on the 26th of April, David Crisafulli had to come out and hit back at a viral TikTok. In the video posted to social media, some kids are driving a presumably stolen sports car, and the caption says, "Sorry, David Crisafulli, # Brisbane." Kids are so funny.
Sorry, David.
So David goes on the offensive, which is your first quote of the day.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. I will not be intimidated by young thugs. I'm not daunted. They can bring it on. I put the rights of victims ahead of the rights of these little punks. We're going to keep strengthening the laws. We're going to put more police.
And we're out to get you.
I'm not going to be intimidated by young punks online taunting abuse. I say bring it on. There are going to be more changes, and your days of running amok will be over.
I'm not afraid to take a stand! Everybody!
He's not going to be intimidating.
He's not going to be intimidating. Also, I'm sorry. And we're out to get you.
And we're out to get you.
All right, King, say it.
Oh, yeah.
Mask off, motherfucker.
If it comes to the mouth, you speak it. It's what is meant to be said, and so David says it. So 2 days later, on the 28th of April, David Crisafulli goes on TV to toe the impossible line that Queensland politicians who work for the benefit of police have successfully towed for years. Despite how successful we are at dealing with youth crime, we're still being fucked by youth crime. It's really tough to do both of those things.
Well, yeah, because you're like, hey, I need to tell you that this is a thing we're doing, and we're going to be putting funds towards it and a lot of marketing towards it. Not because we failed, but because there's more now.
Yes, exactly. Like, somehow.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? I don't know.
I don't know. Hey, there's
nothing I can do about it.
Nothing. Hey. Hey. Back up. I didn't do anything.
Why are you freaking out like that? But on Sunrise, he says this. So he's spruiking that the adult crime laws. What's her ATAC? ATAC. Should we call it the ATAC laws? The ATACs?
ATAC. No.
The ATAC attack.
The attack laws.
The attack laws. Oh, that's great. They're attack laws.
They're attack laws.
Because you're attacking children.
Yeah.
All right. He's spruiking that the attack laws have led to a 30% drop in offences committed by juveniles. On Sunrise, he says that they're green shirts. We have a long way to go. It's showing that the message is getting through. We're starting to turn the corner. I have to stress that we have a long way to go. Our resolve is stronger than ever. We are serious about driving down what is a youth crime crisis in this state.
Damn, okay.
So there's a 30% drop. So that sounds like you've cut it by a third.
Yeah, like, wait, hang on. Yeah, that number is fucked. What do you mean?
But then he's like, we're starting to turn the corner.
This is just the beginning.
It's like it's dropped every... So we spoke briefly about the back and forth about victim numbers and criminal numbers at the end of the episode on anti-Semitism. Are we trying, you know, they asked David, are you trying to reduce the amount of victims or reduce the amount of criminals? What does each of those actually mean? Are they different? Yeah. How many crimes have happened? It's whatever. In response, Labour's Bart Malish says, David Crisafulli said the youth crime would be fixed by Christmas. We've already seen the first round of legislation. Round 2, round 3, round 4. How many goes does he need to get this right?
I'm sorry, it's going to be solved by Christmas.
That's what he said. I'm frustrated that we've ceded the floor to the idea that there is a youth crime crisis. Like, this is the Labour guy being like, he hasn't fixed it yet. The crisis...
That it's just like an accepted fact because, you know, that's been the marketing line for so long. It's just like, okay, well, they've said it 400 million times. I guess it has to be true. Even though it's like, you can lie 400 million times.
I mean, just the fact that each time, like, they say it, there's not a town falling apart to anarchy. You know, it's like, if there's been a crisis for 3 years, I would just think there'd be another development.
You know, or like riots or something.
Like,
I don't know.
The kids have taken over Toowoomba.
You know?
I don't know. But it doesn't, you know, we haven't ceded the floor to that idea. Like, that's the idea. I bumped into my friend, and this is the friend from last episode who I've hijacked as a framing device, but I'm telling you what I heard her say. So the first thing she said when I saw her was like, you know, I was in Logan just last night. I saw 5 kids run up to a car, drive off with it right in front of me in the middle of the day. They had a big hammer, big fucking hammer. She's kind of incoherent, but also is like, that's the first thing you want to say? Like, that's your, like, we haven't spoken in a while. We bumped into each other. I'm thinking about how I don't like your thoughts on things like youth crime. And then you're like, these 5 kids I saw.
And by the way,
I don't believe she saw that, but you know, it made very obvious that no one ceded any floor to anybody. She's a successful person. There's a culture of fear in this country. It's all permeating, and it is very ready to be tapped into at the push of a button.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's a point and shoot. Like, it's just like, yeah, pick your target and then demonize them within an inch of their lives. Like, you know, every fucking example there is, and it always ends up with there being violence done against whatever community is being told are the bad ones, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
that is
be it by governments or be it by people. Like, the end result is you whip everyone into a frenzy and point them in a direction. They're going to be frenetic in that direction.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
That's
like,
the end of a culture war.
Don't be stupid.
Don't be stupid. But that's, you know, politics.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I was listening to the ABC radio, driving somewhere recently. I think before the election, so they were talking about, they were kind of reviewing all the times Peter Dutton's tried to tap into cultures of fear and how he's like not that good at it. But they were like, you know,
alien.
Because he tried to do it with like Muslims and he's okay at it when it's Muslims, but he's not as good. And they were like, the African gangs thing like didn't work well.
No, everyone's like
the people got whipped up, but then it became really obvious that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Like really quickly.
Yeah, I think Australians kind of were like, wow, I don't really actually see that many black people here.
Yeah.
And then kind of were like, well, guess it's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah. And also it's like, oh, well, if there was a increasing problem with African gangs, like I would expect it to get worse. I haven't heard about anything.
You know? And it's like, well.
So the debate, however, is like, yeah, it's like you're saying, you just get people whipped into a frenzy. It's kind of like different formations for like football. It's like, which is your target? How are you going to justify them being the target? And who are you going to decide is the victim? For another example of doing this, see the first episode of this series, the anti-Semitism one. Or see the last 150 or so years of Queensland's history. So the ABC did a fun little summary of Queensland's crime wave discourse that I enjoy it, I guess. The oldest article they found in the 1850s, but this 1894 article from the Morton Mail was the most notable. Kieran, could you please read this 130-year-old news report from Moreton Bay?
I'm so happy to. A crime wave is sweeping the land. People are cutting the throats of their sweethearts and wives, and poleaxing their infants, and gunning their enemies with marvelous enthusiasm.
Hell yeah, right?
That's fucking wild.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I was like, okay, a crime wave is sweeping the land. People are cutting the
Poleaxing their infants.
poleaxing their infants. Nah, sorry, Dave. Gonna be late. Gotta poleaxe the infant.
Motherfucker, packing magnums, I'm packing a poleaxe.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut my sweetheart's neck, and then I'm gonna poleaxe a kid, and then I'm gonna have
Marvelous enthusiasm for violence.
That's what we're up to. There's a lot of theories about why Queensland suffers from this so-called crime epidemic. They started calling it that after the Spanish flu, like the epidemic idea.
Oh, right.
The Armadale Express blames it on human nature inflamed as it undoubtedly is by the hot sun, being apparently prone to commit terrible deeds of violence.
Why'd you do it, son? It's hot. It's so fucking hot.
My skin is burning.
Please, I'm not meant to be here.
So you get... Oh my god. Okay.
My name's Liam. Liam O'Shea, please.
Oh, hey, buddy. I heard Liam was here.
Liam, he burns.
All right, so you get a lot of complaints throughout the years that there aren't enough cops and that judges are too soft, and record numbers of hangings aren't serving as enough of a deterrent.
We're just not hanging
We're
enough.
not hanging enough
but we're
these
hanging
kids.
the most we've ever done, which is strange.
It's strange that we need to hang more. So then you've got the kids. If you ask the Courier Mail and their friends over the last 100 or so years, Queensland's children are fried in the sun and they're too privileged to know the rules, but also they're delinquents from broken and broke families. In the 40s, they were complaining that if you cut the work week to 40 hours, kids will have way too much free time.
Fuck.
Yeah, don't do it, because then what are these kids going to be doing if they're
What are they
going
gonna
to
do?
It's like, wait, so they're already working, 40 hours? You know what they say, free time, youth crime.
You know, that is what they say.
The talking points haven't changed, but the numbers have dramatically. Crime rates are pretty much always at rapid lows since the 90s. Like, it's lower every year.
Yeah.
There's some noise around COVID. COVID is a weird time.
Which makes sense to me, given that was kind of like, let's all be very honest, that is the period of time where just globally everyone went kind of insane.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
cultural reset.
Children, it is a cultural reset, yes. But yeah, adults,
the
children, everybody
kids-
just, because it was like
the
a
kids of
busted
COVID.
fucking time.
The kids of COVID are fucked.
You know?
Like, there's just this, 4-year window where it's like people who are of ages, 25 to 21 now or whatever, are fucking mental.
Yeah.
Because they just were at home during
They were
their
just
teen
stuck
years.
with their families.
Oh my god.
All the time.
And they
that
still
sounds
are,
crazy.
They never really
As
went
a
back.
teenager,
Things didn't open again. Shut up, buddy.
no.
Um,
And what relationships have they formed? What social skills?
Yeah. Oh,
They're all
God.
4 years behind.
But the younger kids are fine. Honestly, it's just these.
Yeah.
It's just these ones. Anyway, it's not the kind of thing that if you're doing a proper statistical analysis of crime rates, you, if you're being honest, are going to look at COVID and say, "Oh, you can't really use this period's numbers."
yeah, you can't count this. This
Yeah.
is a massive outlier.
You also have more cops enforcing quarantine restrictions and things
know?
like that. So,
Hence more criminals because there's new crimes.
exactly. So 7 News still needs something to put on their Instagram page, and 9 News needs to populate their youth crime feature page with lurid footage from the escalating youth crime crisis, and then also advertise affordable devices to security-conscious Queenslanders.
Naturally.
The Courier Mail published this, I suppose, open letter to launch their youth crime media campaign, I guess, back when Anastasia Palaszczuk, was still in charge.
Dear Anastasia Palaszczuk and the Queensland Government, an elderly man who was allegedly attacked and robbed in broad daylight on Monday is unlikely to survive. Enough is enough. Our community wants decisive action and sweeping reforms to finally turn the dial on the out-of-control youth crime epidemic gripping our city. Innocent people are dying and suffering. We need you to come to our community and hear for yourself how desperate we are for change.
It's from the Courier Mail. We are going to meet the Courier Mail's youth crime community in the Patreon, I think. But first, we're going to look at the data laundering that makes otherwise reasonable people look the other way as largely Indigenous kids are rounded up and sent to work camps. I mean, look, I'm once again in the complicated public ethical position of old people get attacked and Yanni's like, guys, calm down. This happens sometimes.
It's just an old person, okay?
It's just an old person. Sometimes they get attacked. Like, this is what we mean when we talk about the massaging of information.
Yeah.
Like, what we call crime is something that's going to happen when you don't have legitimate, earnest opportunities, but also there's 5 million people here. There's 5 million people that can generate moments where a shithead kid is going to hit an old person in the face.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like glad for that kid hitting that. I mean, sometimes
It depends.
Like, no,
depends
I think,
on the kid and depends on the old person.
well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it still does, but also like the rate of that happening in Queensland isn't increasing either.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like more old people are getting attacked. So similar to our anti-Semitism episode, we're going to look at some of these numbers. I am not looking at the numbers that David Christoffel is talking about in the recent press conferences, his claimed 30% drop. And I need to put this up front. In general, I'm skeptical of any statistics that come from police services. I don't think this is a minority view. They're well regarded as like adult numbers, and I'm going to try to look at their claims in the context of this culture, I guess. But I want to make clear that I'm somebody who believes that the entire basis for these numerical claims is fraught with issues of racism, classism, random hatred of youth, whatever.
You know, the classics.
There's a bias that's obviously going to affect how I interpret these numbers. I'll repeat, the people who get these numbers, who make these numbers, have an interest in those numbers looking a certain way.
Yeah.
And thus you shouldn't trust these numbers.
Yes.
I have a second bias as well. I don't care if your flashy car gets stolen. Like,
You know?
too fucking bad. Like, more expensive the car, less I give a shit. Like, I'm going to victim blame you for having a car that gets stolen if it's more than $50,000 per seat.
You know?
It's just, I think it's gross to conspicuously consume like that when you know there's people doing it tough, because you're going to drive past those people doing it tough in your flashy car, and kids are going to walk past those same wretched outcasts on their way to steal your nice car, so you can't blame them for not believing in anything.
No, not really. Like, I think as wholesome as it would be in an idealized and very sanitized world that nobody would, like, think about stealing, you know? It's like, well, that's not the world we live in.
Well, stealing's an outcome of private property.
Exactly. And stealing is like, you know, the desire to steal is to want something that you can't possess through other means, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, if you can afford something that's worth taking,
You should afford to be protected, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't leave your fucking nice car out. Get a guarded garage. Or think about, why do you need this nice car?
Yeah.
Like, not that...
What are you trying to, like, say? Especially if it's, like, a loud and flashy car. Like, yeah, you can like that. I mean, I think maybe you should think about why you have it.
When those cars
What does it
specifically
say
are
about
stolen,
you?
like, I think, like, those kids are doing a morally defensible thing.
And, you know, we've all played the GTAs. You know, you always want to steal the coolest looking car.
Of course you do.
That's just simply like I don't know, like bird brain behavior.
Well, that's just what you get when you're an idiot if you buy a nice car.
Yeah.
I think you're stupid if you buy a very nice car.
Yeah.
That's a stupid thing to buy.
You know?
And it reflects poorly on you and your
It's like,
values.
oh, by the way, I wear gold shoes, but I take them off a lot in public. And it's like, okay. And somebody stole your gold shoes. And it's like, my gold shoes, no. And it's like, okay.
Why'd you wear gold shoes then?
Why do you wear gold shoes?
Fucking idiot. But that's just what I think. So, look, if you can't countenance that, I don't know, read the stats by yourself, by candlelight, huddling in your kitchen every night to protect yourself from these young invaders.
They're very frightening.
They're very frightening. We'll link them somewhere if I remember. Let's talk about this fucking crisis. So, most of the conversation about the so-called crisis comes down to a specific report that came out shortly before the 2024 election that saw Christoffel ride the crime wave into the big seat. In a ministerial statement made on the 2nd of April 2025, the shocking trajectory of the Queensland youth crime crisis was laid bare by the Crime Report Queensland 2023-24. It covers crime that took place in Queensland from the 1st of July 2023 to the 30th of June 2024, so the 23-24 financial year.
Yep.
Kieran, if you could please read the following text for me.
The report reveals between 2014 and 2024, the number of youth charged with stolen cars and robbery tripled. and the number of youth charged with break-ins and assault doubled. The data revealed that the most common age of an offender in Queensland was 15 years old, comprising of 12,268 15-year-olds charged last financial year alone. That's a shitload.
We are the crazy people.
Yeah, it's not exactly right.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like, it's right in the context of how the report writes things. It's not right in the context of how normal people read things, but some other damning discoveries over the last 10 years in the report include:
recorded offences in Queensland increased 18%. Break-ins increased by 28.3%. Stolen vehicles increased by 91%. Robbery increased by 100.9%.
We have not seen it all.
Armed robbery increased 82.3%. Kidnapping increased 82.2%. Arson by 28.5%. And rape and attempted rape increased by 92.2%. These shocking numbers are exactly why we are expanding adult crime, adult time to start making Queensland safer, delivering exactly what we promised.
Those are some crazy numbers.
That's fucking bizarre. What do you
terrified.
mean?
I think the 28% increase in arson is especially unstrategic. It's hot outside.
It's hot outside.
That's why everyone's committing all these crimes.
Now what?
Now it's windy and dry. Karen, should we look into these numbers and see how long until we're poleaxed by a teenager?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm safe because I'm not an infant, but
Yeah,
like, you
that's
know,
true.
you never know.
But
I am kind of small.
I am a sweetheart.
You are a sweetheart.
There must be thousands of these kids. So there's not thousands of these kids.
Right.
And for one thing, a lot of those numbers aren't just youth crime numbers anyway. Sometimes you hear high-minded people complain that severely lacking media literacy in Australia is the reason that people can't engage intelligently with politics, and that's certainly a cohesive way of looking at it. But it's not very easy to have media literacy because words are very close to other words, and you can say one thing and mean another, and that's not even hard to do.
Yeah.
You can say one thing and be interpreted as saying something else and still have the plausible deniability of what you said.
Yeah.
When you hear about political literacy, it almost feels like magic. And maybe in some countries with actual histories, it is kind of like magic, but in this case, it's really stupid and fucking annoying. So let's get into some statistical fuckery.
I'm so excited.
The report is written by the Queensland Government Statisticians Office, or QGSO. I don't know. They're not important. They don't come up again.
KGSO.
Yeah, KGSO.
KGSO.
MC KGSO. It's based on statistics that come out of the QPS, Queensland Police Service.
Quippers.
The term that they use, the QPS, for somebody who's committed a crime is an offender. And the report splits between adult and child offenders. I do want everyone to keep in mind how many things we'd consider crimes, morally speaking, go unreported every day. So the amount of offenders and the amount of morally bad things are unrelated.
Yes.
In my opinion, I'm not in the mood to demonize childs today, offenders or not. So, Karen, what is a child offender?
What is a child offender?
What is a child offender?
I said it before, I'm gonna say it again.
A child offender is, I would presume, a person under the age of 18 who has been charged with a crime of some variety, meaning they have committed an offense.
Exactly. So let's say that you have two kids who are 13. They jimmy the lock on a nice house. They steal the keys off the counter. They take the Lamborghini and then they drive it into the wall. How many child offenders is that?
That's 2 child offenders.
Wrong. It's 8. Each time.
Sorry. You didn't specify that the kids were multiple kids in trench coats. You should have said that at the start.
They are each 4 kids. We've got cloning in this fucking country. And just for child criminals. Isn't that fucked?
Each child is 4 children.
So the way it works, each time the child commits a crime, you become another offender in the stats.
Damn.
So
okay.
the jimmying of a lock, you both did that together. That's breaking in. So that's 2 breaking and entering offenses. That offender then becomes a second offender when he enters.
You've broken and now you've entered.
So you're 2 offenders, you're 4 offenders. Then you got a 5th and 6th when they take the keys. And then a 7th and 8th. Probably more as a process of driving. That's unlawful use of a motor vehicle. So,
no wonder they crashed. There was 8 fucking offenders in that
that's
car.
the thing. Every time they got into a 2-seater Lamborghini and went over the speed limit another time,
another
each
like
of those
two.
offenders doubled.
Yeah. Oh
So,
my fucking god.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a youth gang. This is a youth gang. There was 8 offenders.
There was a gang of those motherfuckers. So, okay, so when I hear the word offender,
Yes.
I think they're using that as an identifying term for a singular person.
For a person.
Regardless of how many acts or offenses they have done.
Exactly.
And what you're saying is this report says that each offense makes that person count as a new offender.
Well, if I've got the, it does sound like I'm reading things selectively, because to a reasonable person that sounds underhanded. Like when
Yeah.
you hear offender, you think
The person,
one
one person.
is one offender. Here's the quote directly from the notes in the report.
Offender. Count of 1 for each unique recorded offence type cleared or solved through police action against an individual offender with a single incident for a specified geographic area and period. An individual offender is counted multiple times during the reference period if they were proceeded against for multiple offence types within the same incident or multiple times within the reference period. So yeah, they just count like...
Doesn't that sound bizarre? Offenses is what that word would be in normal speak.
In regular, normal human speak, it would be like, yeah, there were 8 offences done by 2 offenders if
Yeah.
we're going with the Lambo crash. Like,
Yes.
what?
Yeah. If you wanted to know how many actual rabid child criminals there are, you have to look at unique offenders, which is a number they report separately.
Sure, fuck it, why not?
These numbers are down across the board and have always been going down. I think the honest way to describe what's happening, this child offenses by a child, as opposed to child offenders, is not what you describe if you're trying to have plausible deniability. So they do have it in the report, like, yeah, no, that's what an offender is. It's each time the kid does something is an offender. But then the published words are offenders have increased by this amount. You know, the numbers say this. In total, there were 13,117 children who had police contacts in 2014 and 10,967 in 2023.
Right, so we dropped by like 3K.
Exactly. Noticeably less kids, and then you've got increased population during the time, so the rate's going from 2.7% to 1.9%.
Yeah,
That's been cut by almost a third. There's way fewer of these kids.
yeah. What the fuck?
In the stats, they said that break-ins have increased by 23%. That's another term that colloquially conjures up something of far greater magnitude than what it can technically encompass legally. If you're chatting with somebody and say you had a break-in, you're going to assume, well, somebody broke into their house.
Yeah, your house was damaged to gain access inside of it. Like,
Exactly.
somebody had to break to get in.
You're imagining, like, smashed windows, rocks through the window, smash and grab.
Yeah,
get
like,
the
you know, like
jewels,
fucking battered down the door, like, you
point
know.
a gun,
yeah.
pull them out. Yeah, shit like that. So when you hear break-ins have doubled, I assume twice as many houses have been broken into.
Yes.
And that's not how break-ins goes. Break-ins, per the report, encompass all forms of unlawful entry. That includes into a dwelling without violence, which I suppose is more sneaking into an unlocked door.
Right.
As opposed to breaking in.
Right.
So out of the 9,600 cases of unlawful entry, 6,000 of them were to somebody's house without violence. And then there were 132 that were definitely like with violence.
Right. So these are just people like just kids sneaking in places.
Kids sneaking in places and
I guess like breaking into places and like full disclosure, full disparity. I have broken into houses as a teenager, like to sneak into a house. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I didn't take anything. I didn't damage anything. To be fair, I knew the people whose like house it was,
which still
like,
counts as a break-in.
Which still counts as a break-in because
if you had been
we didn't have permission to be there.
Exactly.
It was a friend's like a divorced parent of a friend.
Yeah, you're not going to get some alcohol or something.
We snuck in. We snuck in to steal his military uniform, but that's a different story.
Oh, his military uniform?
Yeah. Actually, we stole 3 of them.
I think that's a federal crime. Did you give him back?
Yeah.
Okay, hell yeah. That's parody.
That's parody.
It's parody.
Yeah, this was all a dream.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. So the other thing about the violence is that the violence can be against a property. It doesn't have to be physical violence. So that missing 3,000 or so break-ins, 1,000 of the break-ins were into shops, and the remaining 2,500-ish were other, which I guess is construction sites, government buildings, graveyards, things like that.
Public property that is like closed at a certain point.
Yeah, so
Also something I have done.
yeah,
Is,
I mean,
you just like, you're a kid
that's how the Animorph started.
and you're aimless and you just like go like, hey, what happens if I go to this school?
Yeah,
What happens if I just like jump the fence and I go here?
yeah. There's no.
What will happen? It's night.
It's fine. Fucking do it. Like
Yeah.
I really the phrase. It's so scary how much they demonize children here. The phrase that I hated most was 15-year-olds are the most common offenders in Queensland.
Okay.
I'm not going to dispute it based on the numbers. I'm sure they arrested a lot of 15-year-olds. Something like 12,000 offenders, which we know is not 12,000
Not
15-year-olds.
actual people, yeah.
But 12,000 offenders were 15, and for any one age, that is the most offenders. You have a chart on your next slide if you want to have a look.
Mm.
Look at this graph.
But obviously, for the reader, you can't see the chart.
No.
But Kieran's looking at this chart of...
Offenders, brackets, not individuals, by age and offense category.
and you can see a
Okay.
big spike at 15.
Yeah, there's a pretty substantial spike at 15, and I guess because they aggregate like the data, there's also a reasonable spike at 60 plus.
Exactly. It does. It
because
does.
it stops. They stop counting it at 60.
Exactly.
They're just like, yeah, and the ones above that.
Oh, and then the ones above that. So it does look like 60 plus. People who are above 60 commit the same amount of crimes as people who are 13.
You know? But yeah, so that's that.
And that's not all crimes. That's like offenses against the person and offenses against property, you'll notice,
yeah,
is a
offenses
big
against
part of the
property.
spike.
Yeah.
Which-
like other offenses really like if we're looking at the data, the way I'm seeing it here is that out of the three types of offense that are being tracked here, it seems like the majority are offenses against property, and that's kind of true until you hit 18. And that's where you start to have more other offenses. So offenses against the person stays relatively the same throughout ages. Property when you're a kid, and then I guess as you get older, you do other stuff and you don't do property as much. Probably because you have things you can do.
There's a few. You have a,
and there's
you have
more. There's more things you
do.
can like fucking.
You have property, whether it even just be a
Yeah.
car or you're renting a place. Like there is somewhere that is your place to go, so you
Yeah.
don't. You're not just like
Aimlessly,
lost.
like, you know, like, yeah, and
Or
like,
you're just in prison because they can put you in prison when you're 18.
You know?
They haven't, been able to fix your problem. They've put you in
Yeah.
prison. So, and this is, again, offender, like you said, in the context of how they interpret the data rather than in the context of how people talk, like adults and humans
Yeah.
talk. And the other thing about that chart is that you'll notice that, like, adults are still, like, most offenders.
yeah, like,
Even though, like, 15-year-olds get caught for more offenses than a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old. And part of that is, there's other reasons for that, but, like, there's still it's not like there's a massive drop-off and no one's committing crime above 20. or
no,
30.
like, it seems like you basically get to, like, yeah, you basically get to 19, 20.
Yeah.
19, 20, 21, and then it just kind of stabilizes and fluctuates between the amount of crimes that offenders that you would see at those kind of three ages just kind of stays the constant until you get to like the early 40s.
Yeah, plateaus.
And then it kind of like drops off, I guess,
Exactly.
because
People start
probably-
dying.
people start dying, and
It's
also
the-
it's probably a lot of effort,
A lot of effort to do crime at
you know,
43.
and you might just be fucking locked up at that point. And so it's like, okay, well, not a whole lot of crimes you can do while locked up.
Exactly.
You can still do them,
You can
but
still do 'em.
a
And also
less of the variety.
The crimes that older people are committing aren't in this. It's not like wage theft or like
No.
being a shitty landlord or
This is,
being Ben Robert Smith or
you know,
whatever.
against a person, against a property, or other.
Yeah, and I'm going to update the slogan, adult crime, adult time.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many adults. There's the adult crime crisis in this state. You can
Yeah,
see
there
that.
is.
If I put the crimes by adults and crimes by children, there's so many more crimes by adults.
Yeah.
No, there's a few things we can make of this. Coming to mind is like 15 is also the age at which teenagers kind of start going out. So you've got
Yes.
you've got the people going out in droves and they don't know anything because they're 15.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some spike. There has to be some spike in the teen years where you have a critical mass of kids who are all going out for the first time at once, and a bunch of them are going to be clumsy in their early criminal acts, and At 15, boys especially, they hit their growth spurts, they start to sprout facial hair. If they're darker skinned, a cop is going to perceive this child as a man and maybe make things tense.
This cop had a temper tantrum and freaks out.
It's also like, if you're in a car, and I think I'll cover this again later, but like, if you're in a car with 4 of your boys and your friend speeds, you're all liable for that in a youth crime context. You can all be charged for that.
Yeah.
That's like, there's just going to be more offenses because you're hanging out with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Whereas like, by the time you're 20, you're not hanging out with 5 or 10 of your friends.
You don't have that many friends at 20.
Exactly.
Also, I have to say, 15 is the worst age to be. Like, 15 is, like, without a doubt, like, pick a worse age than what it was to be 15.
It's the absolute
It fucking
worst.
sucks. Like, you are smack bang in the middle of childhood and adulthood, and, you know, you've got hormones going on, you'll be getting a job, you'll be going out, like you said, you know, you might be going on dates, you might be doing XYZ.
Some of
like,
your friends drive.
Some of your friends drive. Like, you're at an age where you are trying to be grown in a way because you're like, okay, well, I'm 15 now, you know? It's a big age.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of the way that our society is structured, the age you start to want certain things and the age you start to be able to access certain things, that will be the age that you start to commit, like, you start to see, like, crimes, as it were.
Yeah.
And, like, it's kind of cartoonish. Like, I feel, like, angry for having to say, like, most crimes are still committed by adults just because there's so many adults.
Yes.
Like, I could very easily say that, and any offender is 909% more likely to be an adult than a child.
Yeah.
That's true based on their numbers.
Yeah.
There are fewer people actually being rung up by police. That's from their data as well, and it includes fewer children and fewer adults. But all the police officers they've hired over the past 10 years during these increasing crime panics still have to do something.
Yeah.
Like, they're just cruising around Fortitude Valley, parking like assholes and menacing homeless people, and they make everyone scared about whatever hoodlum with a knife might be lurking around the corner.
You never know.
But you know what's like much more likely is domestic violence. That's become more common than drug offenses over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
The police seem to have been forced to actually record domestic violence cases, which apparently they weren't doing before. And
That's fucked. But you know what doesn't surprise me? Because I wonder who a lot of domestic violence cases are against.
Honestly, cops and their friends. We'll learn about this when we learn about the jerk. But ranking 4th amongst, this is from the report, ranking 4th amongst adult offenders in 2023-24 was breaching domestic violence protection orders, largely attributable to the change in practice from July 2021 requiring police to now record in Q Prime all criminal offenses in investigations relating to domestic and family violence.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So,
I do actually, this is a sidebar. A woman I work with was telling me about her daughter was in an abusive relationship and the guy got, like, locked up. Like, he did do time for, like, what he did to her daughter. And, like, he got out early and they only found out, like, through social media because he, like, was, like, somebody posted a picture of him and, like, nobody told her that he was out or that he was out early.
Yeah.
And, like, she still has active, like, orders against him being like, he can't come near me because he tried to kill me.
and
like,
she's so statistically likely to be hurt by that person.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest, like, risk factors. Like, have you previously done domestic violence? You are very likely to keep doing it
Yeah.
against that person if you are in the same place as that person.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know what Q Prime is?
No.
Well, it's only the controversial police record system that the QPS and Information Commissioner agreed in a behind closed doors meeting to block citizens from accessing even their own records.
What?
Yeah, so Q Prime is like this software that the police use to track cases.
Right.
And this model who a police officer was stalking,
Of course.
and there are domestic violence allegations here and there in the story, found her records and found that the police kept viewing, especially this one cop kept viewing this one photo of her in the evidence that was like a model shot. So he kept going to the police computers and just looking at this one photo of her in a bikini, like swimsuit shots.
Freak. Like, I don't want to... Look, listen. I don't want to give this, like, this cop tips.
No, he ends up assaulting her while she's pregnant, so...
Jesus Christ. I was going to say, just... You have her full name. Just go to Instagram. Are you
Yeah.
insane? Like,
No.
that is still fucked and probably a crime.
Yeah.
But it is just the audacity of these people to just do this on their work computer
To
on paid time and just be
on
like
the special software.
on the special software and just like, and it's just like chill and cool, and that like that's just they
like-
just know that they can do that.
It was like
that's insane.
1,000 times or something.
That's
Like
insane.
he just kept. This story was so fucking crazy. Like it was so fucking crazy. This story. Like we're not gonna get into it because it's a completely different story. But like, yeah, it was then agreed. Like, okay, people won't be able to access this. Like that
So,
was the
wait,
outcome
so-
to that. It wasn't like, hey, there needs to be.
Hey, maybe we should look at why we hire like monsters.
Yeah, it's like okay, no, people can't access their records.
Then what's the point of the system if you can't access the records?
Well, the police can access the records.
But he was police, right?
Yeah.
So then what did it do?
So then she accessed the records, so he'd been accessing it.
Oh, so it's
So
just to
now-
cover up their
Exactly.
own
So-
trails. That's fucked.
People like in records can't access the records, but the police can access the records.
Of course. So
And
that
they've
exact
now-
same thing that happened before,
Yeah.
now it can happen again, but only like the victim is never going to have a tip off that it's going to happen.
Exactly. There's no way for that.
Fuck
and
off.
like if you're actually worried about your literal physical safety other than your cop husband, it's way more likely that a distracted driver is going to fucking kill you in the streets
Yeah.
than some kid.
And there's a lot of motherfuckers like that around.
A lot of motherfuckers texting and driving. More than 95% of offenses for domestic violence breaches, homicide, brackets murder, and other homicide, I don't know.
Manslaughter, perhaps? Or
I guess
like,
so. And then like traffic offenses are adults. So more than 95%. If you've ever been caught for fraud, there's a 9 in 10 chance it's by an adult.
Yeah.
If you have a knife, which is a Weapons Act offense, 85% of offenders are adults. The list also included, the list that I got you to read from the report, a bunch of crime rates that are heavily implied by how it was reported to be heavily child criminal related.
Right.
The most eyebrow-raising ones are the kidnapping and the rape and sexual assault charges. The media release stated, like, these have both increased by this or that percent.
Yeah.
Children are roughly 10% of the offenders in these cases. And you can start to see that depending on, you know, which crime or type of crime you pick, you will find a population group doing that more than the other population group because of how which crime, as it were, you're doing has a lot to do with your circumstances.
Yes. I imagine, like, for example, there's probably a lot of sexual assault crime in your kind of like teens to like 30s when you are actively going out into situations where, or dating a lot, and like situations where you are more likely to meet someone who would do such a thing.
Yeah, exactly. More likely to be like there's more, I suppose, cross-pollination of people.
Yes.
That's more opportunities for somebody to
Yeah,
take
because that's
advantage
a
of
social
someone
crime.
else.
Whereas,
Exactly.
like, you know, fraud and stuff, I imagine you have to be, like, you know, a bit older
Yeah.
to, like, you know, be like, okay, well, I'm going to lie about this information because my
Exactly.
information is no good no more.
Exactly. But like even murder and stuff, like mostly adults. But yeah, the big one I want to look at is unlawful use of a motor vehicle. So I'm not going to pretend that it'd be nice to have your car stolen, but I think it'd be nice to steal a nice car. But that's not even necessarily all or even most of these cases. So the media called it a 91% increase in stolen vehicles. That's not necessarily true. Unlawful use basically means that the person driving the car doesn't own the car and the owner wouldn't want them driving it. So if a child is booked for driving their parents' car while mom and dad are wrestling or whatever, that is unlawful use of a motor vehicle.
Right.
If he has a friend with him, that friend can also be booked for unlawful use of a motor vehicle. If they're a group of 6 teenagers in a Subaru, that's 6 youth crimes. 6 unlawful use of a motor vehicle. When
Yeah.
functionally what's happened is like a child's taken their parents' car when they're 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Not good. I've been in that car.
You know?
It happens when you have cars everywhere.
Yeah.
Kids wouldn't be interested in doing that if they had good public transport. Anyway,
You know?
the
If we all had horses,
if we all had fucking horses and a high-powered semi-automatic rifle,
you know?
the number that they're reporting does not include any crimes committed by an adult driving the car they own.
Right.
So I have to assume that's most of the car crimes. But even if an adult steals a car, they're probably doing it by themselves as well.
Yeah.
So the same amount of cars stolen, but way more child offenders. Kids make up.
Yeah, because kids are going to do it as a group. I mean,
Yeah.
you do everything as a group when you're a
Exactly.
kid. You pack animals, really.
Exactly. Kids make up like 53% of the offenders in the statistics, but like I'd then want to see, well, how many offenders per event?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Like, hey, yeah,
'Cause,
we
like-
have an average of like 4 offenders per event. And so it's
Exactly.
like, oh, so that bloats the numbers because the amount of like offenses in the way that we understand it, like, you know, an instance where a crime occurred
Yeah.
is going to be like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, 10, but there's like 60 offenders.
Exactly, because it's like, you know,
And so but it's not 60 crimes.
No,
Like, well, it is
10 cars stolen.
Yeah.
10 cars stolen.
60 youth criminals.
60 youth criminals, 10 adult criminals.
Yeah.
Youth crime crisis.
Yeah.
30 cars stolen by adults. 10 cars stolen by kids in groups of 6. 60 youth criminals, 30 adult criminals.
Yeah.
Adults have stolen more cars.
Yes.
You know, like these numbers.
They do not tell the story of what's actually going on.
And there's a few things that influence crime statistics. Like, we've got the big societal issues, like if people are broke or lonely, or if there's nowhere to go that you're not meant to spend lots of money, or if your dads are sports people. The inaccessibility of free public spaces and safe public transport. Shout out Safe Victoria Park.
Shout out.
You develop Victoria Park into a nice place to be, I guarantee you'll see a decrease in youth crime. Guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
But anti-homelessness laws, you know. There's also some proven ways to reduce youth crime specifically. Griffith University did a study of 1,500 kids over a decade. They found a significant reduction, so more than 50%, in youth offending amongst families who received, in all of their preschool, quote, an enhanced curriculum focused on communication and oral language skills, delivered by specialist teachers working alongside regular classroom teachers in close partnership with parents. Just like basic communication class will reduce an offense, like the rate of offending, by half already.
Which is wild, because it does show that this is like, kids aren't doing things because they're evil, not that anybody other than like insane people looking at you, David Crisafulli, would think that.
Yeah.
You do things because your brain's not fully formed and you don't understand how to communicate how you feel.
Yeah, like
or what you want, or why you make the decisions you make, because it's all so like murky.
Exactly. Like the reason, you know, we give children lenience is because their brains aren't fully formed, but communication has to be like taught and learned.
Yeah.
And taking someone whose brain is not fully formed and giving them a roadblock in terms of actually being able to communicate with somebody else is going to make their situation worse.
Yeah.
But the biggest influence on youth crime statistics is how much money is being spent and where it's being spent. Is it being spent on these sorts of programs to, you know, get educational interventions, or is it being spent on police to get these horrible, scary, anti-Semitic criminals tearing up society to stop it or whatever?
You know?
There's a couple of programs.
These damn protesters, these damn activists.
Yeah.
They're almost worse than child criminals.
Queensland has a history of the Premier using the army on protesters.
Yeah, just like, hey, fuck them. Fuck them, you know?
They'll do it again if they want. So there's a couple of programs run by Queensland Police over the last few years that might have strongly influenced these. And we're going to talk about police and possibilities here. So one of these programs is the Youth Co-Responder Teams Initiative. This was first launched in 2020 and now running across much of the state. So it's a police officer, a social worker, and usually like a nurse or some other medical professional working in a team to meet repeat youth offenders and divert them away from the justice system. Like, hey, we could arrest you, but instead we're going to send you to this or that rehab or whatever. In theory, the initiative leads to less arrests.
Yeah.
And if there's somewhere positive to go, which sometimes there is, that's great. It does hinge on there being somewhere positive to go and on the police officer not acting like a dickhead and escalating the situation.
Yeah, which is a big ask.
Exactly. It's a mixed effect overall. There's certain increases because of certain decreases. The other initiative is Task Force Guardian. So it seems to be more teams of empowered cops shaking kids down in the street. Increasing arrests, definitely increasing arrests for things like having some cannabis on you.
Yeah.
Here is the ABC reporting on one of their interactions.
Within minutes of arriving at the shopping centre bus station, the team locate a 16-year-old boy they suspect is in possession of drugs. The teenager is wanded with a metal detection device and asked to turn out his pockets. But the exchange quickly becomes heated when he refuses. He's forced into a public bathroom and searched before being detained and put into a police car. His worried friend watches on. At the top of his pants there was a bag of cannabis sticking out, and he refused to give that up. Detective Sergeant Franz Hole explains.
The ABC tells us that Detective Sergeant Hole has been with Queensland Police for 22 years, but started his career with the German police. Task Force Guardian is a rapid response police task force dedicated to targeting high-risk youth offending. The story we just talked about is emblematic in that nothing would have happened if the cops hadn't been there.
Yeah,
Everyone
what the fuck?
would have been fine. The kid didn't have to get wandered, thrown into a
fucking stripped in a
car.
bathroom by a bunch of adult men.
For a little bit of fucking cannabis.
For a tiny bit of fucking weed.
For just a bit. Anyway, so the initiative was gonna, lead to more arrests. The entire interaction, like, why didn't Why are the teens just hanging out in the shopping center? Why don't they have anywhere else to go? Why is cannabis criminalized? Why do the police know so much about this kid? Like, it's
what the fuck?
Yeah, why do all these adults know so much about this kid?
Right?
It's a microcosm of the song and dance that is imprisoning children.
Yeah.
Task Force Guardian was first launched in 2023, so the crime report, with all the increasing crime, is the first year that the effects of it would be seen. So, I don't know if this is important too, but it's in August of 2023 that the Queensland Government basically overruled the Human Rights Act to allow children to be put in adult watch houses. This
Which is fucking sickening.
Yeah, and it's the pre-Crisafulli Stephen Miles government as well, so...
Jesus Christ.
Crisafulli is looking at Task Force Guardian and saying, this isn't good enough. Yeah, they need more money. Like, he also looked at Operation Whiskey Legion, which does seem to be a request-your-own beat cop service, and said, we can get some of those guys on the state flying squad, which they are strategically deploying to high-risk areas.
Which just means, like, yeah, we're just going to have our fucking goons walking around trying to, like, you know, any kid that, like, looks like they, I don't know, have said a swear once is just going to get pulled up and be like, where are the drugs, kid?
Yeah.
They'll find something on you.
Well, they're doing
and if they
crackdowns.
don't find anything on you, they'll say, well, you were resisting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit, dude.
Yeah, because you're going to fucking put me in prison. Like,
yeah.
They
or
do...
you're taking me to a public bathroom to strip search me, and I'm a child.
With a bit of weed.
For a bit of weed. Like, it just, like, that's just fucked.
I saw this one video where, like there's this guy who's clearly a bit wasted. He's just like, why do you have this knife on you, mate? And he's like, to defend myself. And they're like, to defend yourself? Well, you know, having a knife is illegal. It's like, you haven't responded to what he said at all.
No, what the fuck?
It's like, I don't care about that.
It's like, oh, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, so Task Force Guardian can divert youths away from the justice system, but from their establishment to October 15th, 2024, they report to have charged 2,093 kids with a total of 6,167 offenses. So they're doing about 3 offenses per youth, which is 3 offenders. Each youth becomes,
fucking stupid.
On an average deployment, they charge 20-ish kids, so about 3 offenses per kid means 60 youth offenders chalked up. They divert a kid for every 2 kids they charge. So it's like prison, rehab, prison, prison, rehab, prison. Is kind of their pattern.
That's bizarre.
My least favorite version of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Moe.
Duck, duck, goose.
Yeah, duck, duck, prison.
Prison. Rehab.
In some places, they're charging like way more kids than diverting. In the far north, there's 1 kid diverted for every 4 kids charged.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas in Mackay, it's more like 1-to-1.
Damn.
Officers going to Task Force Guardian are taken away from their regular beats. Hey, what the hell? The state flying squad did a crackdown while I was reporting this? God, they're partnering with the police helicopters in the far north dog squad to chase down a bunch of teens stealing a car. These motherfuckers are going on dog raids at teenagers. They did a Cairns crackdown in November and put out a proud press release like, we locked up 54 kids last week and we charged them with 220 crimes. And it's scary.
What the fuck?
Yeah. In the ABC article about Task Force Guardian, they also spoke to an expert, Professor Tamara Walsh, who did an independent review and found that Indigenous kids are way more likely to be sent to court than diverted, that co-responder teams are considered best practice around the world, so the teams we spoke about before.
Social worker, nurse, and I guess cop.
Yes, and the language disorders are one of the biggest predictors of someone being arrested.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much like right behind everything. And I can't get into the head of somebody who sees like 3 grown men yelling at a teen who essentially speaks a different language.
Yeah.
And thinks that's going to save this country. But a lot of people can. David Crisafulli, if you ask the polls, is extremely popular. Not with First Nations people who see that 70% of people in youth detention on any day are Indigenous kids. They're not excited to hear about the laws which could allow for a life sentence to be given for a 10-year-old convicted of arson.
That's so fucking insane.
Nor does it fact that it means that the already crowded youth detention centers, which is a fancy way to say child prison, would see worsening conditions. But, like, this is actually the goal. The Youth Justice Minister, Laura Gerber, says, it will be likely that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children will be impacted by these amendments, but I'm satisfied that there is no direct or indirect discrimination on the basis of race.
That's... you.
I mean, she said it. But yeah, I mean, like...
I don't give a fuck what she says. Like, here's the thing. I'm constantly so fucking baffled by everyone in this country just being like, oh yeah, and then there's Indigenous people, you know, whatever about them. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
This is the legacy.
You can be what many people would presume is a normal human being with positive thoughts and you think like discrimination is bad, but, and then it's always like, but Aboriginal people, evil, slur.
Evil, slur.
And it's like, how can you reckon with that? Are you fucked in the head? Like, how fucked in the head are you? Asking for a friend, how and when did you get fucked in the head?
That's what our shirts are going to say.
Like,
merch.
Did they use protection when they fucked you in the head?
There's a baby.
Hey, you've got a baby growing inside your head and I'm going to poleaxe it. Like, what?
Poleaxe the baby.
What the fuck?
Yeah, when they
fuck them, I guess. Yeah, fuck them. It's not enough. It's not enough everything that has happened to First Nation Australians. We're just going to keep making it worse.
Yeah, it's like,
because fuck it. Let's just keep making it worse. Why make it better? That would require doing something.
We know this is going to be bad for them, but
I don't give a shit.
We think it's actually fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they put one of the attack amendments through, the adult crime amendments, Laura had to acknowledge that the Human Rights Act was being violated. This was the second time that the Crisafulli government, which has been in power for less than a year, has violated the Human Rights Act, but previous government did it twice as well. So, in general, Queensland views youth justice laws as a meaningless deterrent to be sped past.
Yeah.
Crisafulli says it sends a strong message to youth criminals, which implies that youth criminals are paying attention to what the Premier says.
Yeah, and also this strong message you're sending to youth criminals, like, as we've just discussed, probably a lot of them aren't going to get it at all. Because why would they?
No.
Either A, they don't care, they're children, they're not interested in like what people are doing, or B, like their fundamental understanding of what is going to constitute a crime is like not on the same level.
Yeah.
Like what?
They're very different. So kids might not care about the Premier, but the United Nations really doesn't like David Crisafulli.
As they shouldn't.
So the people who make, like, the Human Rights Act
they're like, hey, we made some laws, and he's like, they suck. And they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, so they've described the Making Queensland Safer laws as incompatible with basic child rights.
Yeah.
They got their experts in torture and Indigenous rights, like, mainly working on it. They have special rapporteurs, is the phrase, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So they were warning the Queensland government away from doing what they're going to do. David Crisafulli said this.
Here's my message to the United Nations. You don't control me, and I don't answer to you. I answer to Queenslanders. We make laws to deal with one of the biggest issues this state has ever faced, and it's a generation of repeat, hardcore young offenders.
When you hear the Labor Party criticize them, they wave all these changes through still.
Yeah, of course they do.
Don't you fucking worry. All the politics in this country is a lie. The cruelty is the point. They want to hit kids. They want to shackle them and put them in prison because they don't have the enemy they were promised. They have been in a siege mentality here for generations, and they haven't had the siege hit. So when their nice cars and fancy houses see the violence of their exploitation that got them there, they turn on their easiest targets. They turn on societal orphans, the least franchised of the disenfranchised, and it's just a coincidence that it's mainly Indigenous kids going to prison. I hate these guys so much.
Yeah, as you should.
Let's have a little bit of fun before we end off. Let's meet some of the freaks behind the youth crime movement.
All right.
Yeah. The first mention of adult crime, adult time is the paper of a 2003 article published by David Myers at the University of New Haven. Right at the start of the second paragraph, we get this stinger. Despite recent national decreases in violent juvenile arrest rates, youth violence receive a considerable amount of public attention. Many commentators assert that youthful offenders get off with a slap on the wrist. Very familiar to today.
Yeah.
In January of 2025, Laura Gerber, the Minister for Youth Justice and Victim Support and Minister for Corrective Services, we just spoke about her, announced that expressions of interest were going to be open for the expert legal panel for youth crime. The goal of the panel is deciding which offenses are going to be part of adult crime, adult time. So they're looking at a expert panel of law enforcement, legal practice, or victim support, and the expressions of interest were open for 10 days. 5 days after the panel was announced, Laura Gerber parked like an asshole in a disability space. Let me show you if you go to the next slide.
That's the worst park I've ever seen in my fucking life. Are you serious?
Could you tell the folks how? So she's going to say she wasn't driving, but if every child in a stolen car is a child offender, every passenger in a car parked like a shithouse Tetris line is an offensive adult.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess how should I describe this? So she is, to her credit, only a little bit of her car is in the disability parking spot. Most of it is blocking the disability parking spot and is just kind of in the middle of a road. Like there's an arrow and she's just kind of like over the arrow, you know, the directional arrow when you travel.
Yeah. Like the front corner of her car is in the disability spot, and the rest of her car
And the
is
rest of the back of the car is like just
hanging out
in the fucking middle of the road.
Yeah.
This is horrendous.
Yeah. For what it's worth, like
What's this bitch driving?
she wasn't. It's an Ionis. It's like a nice car.
Yeah, I was just scrolling in on the
Ionic or whatever.
Ionics.
The Ioniq 6 has never been a particularly beautiful car.
So sometime in April 2025, we had
What a
our
dead shit.
Yeah, she's a dead shit, and she's appointing the Adult Crime Adult Time panel, which is apparently appointed transparently by a trustworthy government or whatever.
Sure.
All 5 of the members are controversial in some context or another. Some of it's pretty typical government corruption stuff. The chair is April Freeman. You can see a picture. April Freeman is married to the Treasurer's Chief of Staff. She's been a barrister and Crown prosecutor, going from representing random pickpockets in 2011 to Anglo-American Coal in 2020 and Rio Tinto in 2022. Quite the career path, but she certainly is a lawyer. She, what do you think?
She looks like one.
Just because you look racist.
Yeah.
Her makeup is kind of intense. Her eye makeup is so intense. It makes her look like she's got the Julie Bishop glare, you know?
She does have, yeah. She
like,
looks
there's
angry.
something in her eyes where I'm like, oh, a little bit scared.
She looks like there's spittle coming off her.
Yeah.
So the next one on this panel is Robert Weir, who was a cop for 43 years and was a superintendent, whatever that is. Robert established and led Task Force Mike Adamant, which was combating increasing property crime in Townsville that members of the community had been fear-mongering about on social media. A guy wrote an anonymous story online about an extremely rude, extremely racist person named Robert Weir missing his flight to Brisbane because he was too busy being too much of a piece of shit. So it's complete hearsay, but the physical description of the guy fits. So he's law enforcement. And, I think he looks kind of spooky.
He's got one of those noses that looks like when you look at a dog from behind and they're taking a shit.
What? Oh, yeah. It does look like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's probably been broken, yeah. So the next member is Douglas Wilson, who is another barrister. He runs a private practice at George Street Chambers. He's like a big country plantation lawyer.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Maybe that's not fair, but from his website, Doug holds a particular interest in rural succession law matters. His interest in succession planning for large-scale farming operations stems from his family's involvement in grazing enterprises in the Brisbane Valley and Darling Downs regions. That's not all for him though. So he also represents like people in court just regularly.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's worked with a wide range of people. He represented fellow hotshot lawyer Carlo Raystrick when he was accused of molesting an 11-year-old.
Jesus.
He was found guilty, but Doug argued the court down to a 6-month sentence because of his anxiety. He represented an Australian basketball icon when he punched a lady in the face a bunch of times and got him a 4-month sentence. He also works with legal aid with men accused of and usually convicted of extreme violence. So, this is, I guess, there is somebody who has to have the job of being the lawyer for men accused of domestic violence, and he's the best at it, which means that the men that he represents tend to get sentences that, in the context of prison, seem woefully low for what they've done.
Yes.
There's not much about him.
You can molest an 11-year-old and get 6 months in jail.
6 months because
if that 11-year-old, because of the trauma, lights a fire, goes to jail until they're 21.
Until they're 21.
At least.
And then they go to other jail. So next is Randall Ross. He's an Aboriginal elder, as it were. He banned welcome to country ceremonies in his shire. He said that they were abused and misused for the wrong people. And, I'm not going to get into it. Welcome to country ceremonies are odd.
Not my place to say.
Yeah. He says he voted no for the voice referendum because there are too many problems for him to say yes, and that it was being pushed by the government and not the people. It's interesting, I guess. He's also loosely linked to sovereign citizens, which from the reporting I think is a bit of a blow-up over nothing. But he's certainly a character. I guess it's telling that it's the one high-profile Indigenous elder, as it were, who was a loud no campaigner for the voice, is on the youth crime panel. It's telling.
Says something.
Says something. And the last but not least is Lindy Atkinson, founder of the victims advocacy group Voice for Victims, which is a Facebook page that she runs. This is her second dalliance with the media. The photo you're seeing is from her first attempt, when she was the only person in her apartment complex next to a waste management facility to go to the media about the smell. She says, I couldn't find, like, no one else seemed to care. It's like, well, maybe the smell isn't that bad then.
Yeah.
If no one else cares, it can't be that bad a smell.
Yeah.
And Lindy seems to have turned her little Facebook group into a lucrative little career, but we'll speak about them behind the Patreon, because there's some real fucking freaks in there, but it's not crucial to the story other than it exists. It's largely a group of racist old men, self-important middle-aged women sharing on videos of dogs being set onto children. Anyway, we're going to have a lot more to say about youth crime over the next while, but that's where we're going to leave our episode today. Again, this is all part of an answer to why don't you come in and visit anymore, to someone I know. And the answer I give her is, I suppose, the superstructure of the State of Israel, the Queensland State Government, the Australian National Government, the Murdoch and Fairfax presses, the police and social media have turned you into an unempathetic, crazy person in the service of empire, is the answer, I guess. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. What else can one say to that?
I'm off to commit some youth crime.
It's too late for me to do youth crime, but lucky for me, adult crime doesn't fucking matter, apparently.
That's, like, it's disappointing, but that's where, that's kind of our episode. That's the state of play as it is. Like, a lot of this is still happening. So we'll check back in later, much with the Save Victoria Park.
And the Olympics.
And the Olympics. Like, all of these things are going to come to a head if they keep continuing along this way. Like, the ratty youth in the cities are going to be the thing that's going to embarrass us at the Olympics. Some fucking Eshe, like, I don't know, knocks Simone Biles off the beam or whatever.
Yeah, it's gonna be so fucking stupid.
Yeah, but Karen, anything from you?
I hate all of it. I'll be so for real with you.
Yeah.
Here's something I'll say.
Yeah.
As I've said, I am a middle-aged man. Like,
Yes.
have to accept that. That's where I'm at. Sometimes I will hear a loud, like, large group of, like, younger people, and they'll just be having fun, causing a ruckus. And I will for a moment go like, oh my God, and then be like, you're an adult, you piece of shit, grow up.
Oh my God.
And then I'm like, yeah, they're kids, they're having fun. None of them are being, like, violent. None of them are doing anything crazy. They're just loud and weird, and I was also loud and weird.
Yeah.
I used to sprint through, like, malls screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, it doesn't, like...
Yeah, it's really,
the kind
like...
of shit that you, like, if you just take a moment and think back to what you were up to at that age, you'll go, oh, right. And how are you now? You're fine, right?
You're fine now. And also
Like,
think about
come
how
on
many
now.
more things you could kind of do.
You know?
Like...
And the
it's a
things that
different
hadn't
world.
been, like, taken from you yet.
Yeah.
You know? I think we just need to realize that even in the animal kingdom, like, adolescence, like, will always come with a teething period of testing out social boundaries and forming groups and, like, all these sorts of things, because that's a very natural thing to do when
Yep.
you're, a social creature, as we all are.
Exactly. And as, like,
that's just
dogs
part
are.
of development. Like, that's just how it is.
It's
you
how
just
it
need to be.
is.
You can be like, oh, this is so annoying. You can be like, oh gosh, I wish they weren't so loud. But finding what is a natural, like, biological, pubertical, as it were, like, process, to find that scary just shows how out of touch we are with ourselves as humans in humanity.
With our society, with the idea of what it is to be a human, if there is still some kind of cohesive idea of what it is to be a human.
You know?
I think there's a jealousy too. I think there's just like these old, broken-ish people who are seeing kids having fun. And they're mad because when they were young, they were promised they weren't ever going to die. And now they've kind of figured out, because like Australians, they can't read and they think they won't die, you know? Like that's like the fundamental culture of the country is an illiterate
The culture of the cunt?
immortality. Yeah, the culture of the cunt is just like bye because you're going to live forever.
Yeah.
And
also everything should go your way.
everything should go your way. So you see some kids like being loud when you have to sleep because you're tired or whatever. It's just a jealousy starts forming where it's like, well, these kids are still young. I'm meant to be young still. I was told when I was young that I wasn't going to die.
You know?
That's why we've preserved all our ancestors in coffins made of concrete and wood under the ground to make sure that they stay exactly as they are. Because we're going to bring them back. We're going to bring them back.
You know?
Stupid country. That's why we shouldn't have come, because we're going to have kids mining for coal soon. It's a tough one, but it's what it is. Kids, while you're out there, I definitely recommend SPF if you're in the sun.
Yeah, for sure. And
For sure.
if you're in the mines, like I don't know. Hopefully they work out a vape that can help clear out all that like coal dust.
Yeah, like a positive vape.
Yeah.
Cleansing vape. I buy
Cleansing
that.
vape.
I buy a cleansing vape. Shouldn'ta Come is a podcast by Yanni and Kieran.
Hi.
It's us. You can find us wherever you found us. Our Patreon has a bonus. We're going to talk about the Voices for Victims Facebook group on the Patreon and about some of the fucking freaks that post there. But if you want to hear that, head over there. Otherwise, you can follow us as well by emailing us, shouldn'tacome@gmail.com.
Exactly.
We'll put those links.
Yanni released her demo album recently. You should go have a listen. It's on Bandcamp. There's also a version that is on the podcast page, so you should be able to find it.
Yeah.
And we have the fundraiser for Karam in Palestine to help support him and his family while all hell continues to, break loose.
Yeah, like if nothing else, just remember anyone who seems like they know what they're talking about and supports Israel is someone you should be suspect of.
Yeah, they don't know shit.
They don't know shit, but they think they know something, and what they think they know is really dangerous. Bye, everyone.
Bye.